This is Dr. Wahid, a man courageously calling for the betterment of the Muslim world and who has worked in the NHS for 33 years. And Piers Morgan tried to intimidate Muslims into silence by targeting this doctor. But in the end, Piers and his goons not only miserably failed, they only exposed British and Western media even further. It all happened after this interview.
Let's agree on a principle. If atrocities were committed, right, I will never condone them, right? I will say that.
So do you condemn what happened on October the 7th?
If atrocities are committed, you know who's
What do you mean if? No, they were.
Who's responsible for it then?
So you don't condemn it?
Okay.
When faced with the classic, do you condemn Hamas question, Abdul Wahid did not back down and held his ground and continuously exposed the lies and atrocities of the Zionist state. In addition, he proudly defended orthodox Islamic views that are held by anyone who studied the deen enough to escape Western indoctrination. And he didn't hesitate when asked about the Sharia, shoving Piers' condescending questions back to his face.
What we want to see in the Muslim world is a system with an accountable government, right? An elected leader, upholding family values, right? We want to see an economic system where wealth is circulated.
And both the fact that his masters were exposed, despite his efforts to defend them and their atrocities, but also the fact that a Muslim strongly stood for a free Islamic world on national TV made Piers crazy. In the days following the interview, he not only called for the suspension of the doctor, but hosted interviews about whether he should be suspended or not.
So when happy to platform anybody on this show, right to the point where they try and convince me that what happened on October the 7th was not an act of terror. And when people refuse to concede that point, I find it very hard then to have a civilized discussion. It's why I got so annoyed last night.
Well, can we, so if I may interject,
the killing of my daughters as terrorists?
Thankfully, you can always count on Muslims to stand with their brothers and refute the enemies of Islam.
So considering that you have justified the operation that Israel initiated as self-defense, and that you refuse to call Israel a terrorist organization or a terrorist government, despite the fact that almost as many Palestinians, Gazans have died under Israel's precision bombing, then as Londoners have died during the whole year of the Blitz under German bombing, which wasn't precision bombing, and yet you still say that, well, Israel isn't a terrorist organization. I think the question we should be asking is, should you be suspended? Is it responsible to have a person with your views speaking to the public when you clearly refuse to condemn that which needs to be condemned?
But in the end, even if for the public, the truth was evident, and Piers was highly criticized on social media, the NHS caved and ended up crumbling under the pressure of Piers and his goons' bullying.
Now, every now and then here at the Independent Republic, we get something to cheer about. And tonight, I'm particularly proud to bring you some very good news indeed. Thanks to my colleague Piers Morgan at Talk TV, an NHS doctor who also operates as the UK head of a banned terrorist organisation called Hypocrisy, has been suspended from his job as a GP working in North London. Abdul Wahid has been practising as a doctor for more than 20 years, and he was attached to a GP direct practice in Harrow since 2002.
Can you imagine rejoicing about the suspension of a doctor without any malpractice? Being happy about one less doctor to treat patients is pretty wild. But in true Talk TV fashion, the visibly unhealthy host even disgustingly implied that Abdul Wahid might be purposely mistreating Jewish patients.
This man is abhorrent and he has no business being anywhere near the NHS, never mind Jewish patients.
But in the end, the NHS had to concede that Dr. Wahid Shaida did not do anything that deserved him being suspended from the National Health Service, where he has been seeing patients with care for over 30 years. And just like that, the suspension has been overturned, and all the efforts of Piers to keep that doctor away from his patients were in vain, and only served to expose him, his ties, and his agenda even further. What excellent news for Abdul Wahid's patients, but also for the right of free speech of Muslims in the UK.